You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Folks, Texas Democrats, as we speak, are leaving the state to keep the Republicans from having a quorum and passing voter suppression bills and others. We're going to break down what all this means, but joining us right now is Representative Carl Sherman, parliamentarian for the Legislative Black Caucus. Representative Sherman, how you doing?
Doing great, Roland Martin. How are you, sir?
Doing great. You're actually going down the runway, so explain to folks, why are y'all leaving the state?
Well, this session has been poisoned from the beginning. When you've got a governor who threatens to defund the legislative branch by vetoing Article 10 as an appropriator, I know that that's clearly an abuse of power, an act of abusing his power and defunding a legislative branch that is not under his governance, but that's not stopped him. And this, what's necessary. Simply put, Roland, we are calling on the President of the United States to be the Lincoln of our times.
And that particular point there, and people don't understand, by Democrats leaving, this happened more than a decade ago to keep them from moving forward on bills. You walked out last time, but if you didn't flee the state, they could lock the chambers and keep y'all inside.
That's exactly right. And, you know, we're in this fight, and we're fighting on behalf of those who fought for the Voters' Rights Act in 1965. That's why we're fighting now. We're fighting on behalf of those who fought to expand the voting age to 18 years old. We want more people to be able to participate in our democracy. I don't know why they are afraid of opening up elections for fair elections for every Texan to be able to vote. So we need President Biden to be the Lincoln of our times and come through for us in the passage of the John Lewis Act.
I know we might lose you in a second, but it looks like you're actually going down the runway to take off.
We are.
And there are 3 weeks. The session is 30 days. There are 3 weeks left. And so if, let's say, it expires, the governor could call another session, but y'all going to be gone for 3 weeks. Are you all coming to D.C.?
We are committed. We've got a majority of our representatives that are here, and we're committed to this fight until every Texan is respected. Their voices are heard. Doesn't matter whether you're white, black, brown, or yellow. Everyone should have the right to vote in our democracy. This is about expanding the democracy. And Roland, you know, every good deed does not go unpunished. We had
looks like we lost
the voting participation.
Looks like we're losing your signal there, Representative.
I'm in the air, Roland, and
yes, you're in the air. Be safe. I'll talk to y'all when y'all land here in D.C. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Again, folks, so let me walk you through again. You might remember in the regular session, what happened was in the regular session, the Democrats walked out of the chambers, keeping the Republicans from being able to pass laws. They need to have a quorum to actually do so. Texas Governor Greg Abbott decided to call a special legislative session, not only to deal with these voter bills, but also to deal with a lot of other bills that Democrats absolutely oppose. Well, by not having a quorum, they can't move on any of this. And so over the weekend, Republicans pushed forward 2 bills prohibiting 24-hour polling places, drop boxes, and drive-thru voting in the special legislative session. That is specifically to target Harris County, where the largest group of black voters are in the state. Now, although Texas House Democrats are hoping to persuade the GOP to ease on some of these voting laws they're trying to enact, they say another revolt could be their only option. That's why they're leading. Now, Governor Greg Abbott went on Fox News on Sunday where he defended the prohibition of 24-hour polling places, drop boxes, and drive-thru voting. Listen to this nonsense.
So you say you want to make it easier to vote. That's going to make it harder to vote. And the question is, why make it harder for some Texans to vote unless the point is to suppress voting by people of color?
So you mentioned a couple of things that need to be responded to. One, you mentioned how Harris County did this, and it was Harris County alone. And for your viewers, Harris County is where Houston, Texas is located. Let's go back to Article 1, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, where it says in there that it is the states, not counties, that have the authority to regulate elections. And despite that constitutional mandate, this past election, Harris County, a county, tried to create its own election system that had never been used in the state of Texas. It was not used in other parts of the state of Texas. And so what
but
the
Governor,
state of Texas is doing...
Why not let it go on? Governor, I guess the question is, if 24-hour voting worked, why not continue it?
Well, first, I'm going to answer your question specifically, but you need to go back to elections before now, because the same allegations were made when Texas passed a voter ID law, and everyone said the exact same thing. This is going to disenfranchise people of color. It will reduce voting. And the fact of the matter is, after we passed voter ID, we increasingly saw every election cycle more people go vote. It did not make it harder to go vote. It was easier to go vote. And the same thing applies here, and that is with 24-hour voting, one thing that we want to make sure that we have is integrity in the ballot box system, and we need to have poll watchers and monitors. And candidly, it's hard, even for a county, to get people to be watching the polls 24 hours a day. We are providing more hours per day for voting to make sure that anybody of any type of background, any type of working situation is going to have the opportunity to go vote. With regard to the drive-thru voting, listen, this violates the fundamentals of what the way that voting integrity has always been achieved, and that is the sanctity of the ballot box. If you do drive-thru voting, you're going to have people in the car with you, and it could be somebody from your employer or somebody else who may have some coercive effect on the way that you would cast your ballot, which is contrary to you going into the ballot box alone and no one there watching over your shoulder, so that the way you vote, only you will know what the vote will be. And to allow other people to pile into a car with you, it will alter that. In addition to, it would violate state law, because in state law we have prohibitions on electioneering close to the where people cast their vote. If you're doing drive-through voting, there's going to be electioneering. It could be on the bumper sticker in the car right in front of you. We do still, however, Chris, provide what's called curbside voting for those who qualify for curbside voting. That continues to be in place. Bottom line, Chris, is Harris County, under the Constitution, is not allowed to come up with their own rules. What Texas is doing, by adding more hours, we're making it easier for people to go vote. One last point, Chris, and that is, if you look at the hours of voting that Texas provides, it is far more hours of voting than exist in the state where our current president voted in, where they have exactly 0 hours of early voting. It's far easier to vote in the state of Texas than it is in Delaware, and yet nobody is claiming that there's some type of voter suppression taking place in Delaware.
That was a lot of bullshit. First of all, you would think that a governor who is confined to a wheelchair would not be tripping on, the sanctity of the ballot box, meaning you have to physically go in. All that nonsense, you could be coerced in your car if your employer's in the car with you. Get the hell out of here. That's just nonsense, y'all. Hundreds of Texans were eager to voice their opinions in regards to these new voting laws. The Texas House gave voters a chance to provide a public testimony at the state capitol starting at 1:40 a.m. on Sunday, but several people showed up as early as 7:30 Saturday morning. Nearly 300 people waited 17 hours to participate in the hearing. While Abbott and other GOP leaders argue the new laws do not suppress the vote, Texas State Representative Rafael Anchia appeared on Ali Velshi MSNBC with details of conversations between House Democrats and Republicans. Watch this.
Over and over again, we've asked Republicans, including the governor, to go ahead and give us examples. They've never been able to provide any. The reality is that our Republican Secretary of State called this election safe, secure, and successful. No examples of voter fraud. Now, they're trying to prosecute a guy, poor guy in Houston, who waited in line forever. Turns out he's an American citizen, was eligible to vote, but for the fact that he was still on some sort of parole. So they're coming hard at him. But other than that one single case, which really is a technicality and a mistake, not with the intention of committing any type of irregularity, there is no example of what's going on. Look, my brave colleagues in the House have been sitting there overnight in a committee hearing that just ended moments ago. For 24 hours, they sat and listened to overwhelming testimony by Texans that say, don't take away my freedom to vote.
He's talking about Hervis Rogers, a black man facing decades in prison for illegally casting a vote. Rogers, who believed he was eligible to vote, cast ballots during the November 2018 and March 2020 primaries. Rogers says he was confused about his voter eligibility. Many argue the new voting bills will continue to add to the confusion of voter eligibility and continue to disproportionately affect black communities. Folks, what we're seeing is a huge mess, but we also are seeing why the For the People Act needs to be passed in the House, the John Lewis Act. And so what Texas House Democrats are doing by coming to D.C. is to put pressure on the very people who are here in D.C. to get these Democrats, especially Senate Democrats like Kristen Sinema of Arizona and Joe Manchin of West Virginia, to have some guts and end the filibuster. My panel, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, she is the Dean, College of Ethnic Studies at California State University, Los Angeles. Terrain Walker, founder of Context Media. Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, political analyst. Avis, I want to start with you. There's going to be lots of things happening this week. There's a big event taking place on Thursday. Melanie Campbell, Black Women's Roundtable, and National Congress of Negro Women, and so many others are participating in. And so we're going to be at that event. They're going to be actually having an event tomorrow. We're going to be live streaming that tomorrow night at 8 p.m. President Joe Biden is going to be in Philadelphia tomorrow, speaking at 2:50 p.m. Eastern about voting rights. We're going to be carrying that speech as well. And so what you're seeing with these Texas Democrats, they're actually showing Democrats in D.C. How to have some guts. They are literally leaving the state for 3 weeks. They're leaving their families, everyone, for 3 weeks, because if they had stayed in Texas, they could have actually, the Speaker of the House could have actually locked the doors or had the Texas Rangers arrest members to bring them to the state capitol. In 2003, they fled the state, went to Oklahoma and other places when they tried to keep a gerrymandering bill. Actually, they were actually changing the districts. And it was a black state rep, Ron Wilson, who broke ranks, got with the Republicans because he was hoping he was going to, they were carving out a new congressional district in Houston, and Ron thought he was going to get it. Guess what? Ron got his ass whooped in that race and got his ass whooped again when a former teacher ran against him and just drove him into the ground. He got lots of payback from black voters for siding with Republicans who screwed Democrats in the state. And so this is a strong move for all 58 to leave Texas to fly to D.C.
It sure is. I mean, they are showing what it looks like to have a spine, to have fight in them. They clearly understand the gravity of this situation, which I have to tell you, I've been very disappointed with the Democratic Party writ large in terms of their laissez-faire attitude with regards to this issue. You know, I don't understand why it's not logical to them to get the fact that if we don't fight like hell right now around these issues, those things that they want, it's not going to happen because they will likely lose Congress in terms of the midterms, and it'll be that much harder to get a second Democratic presidency, whether President Biden runs again or whether there's another presidential candidate, perhaps a vice president moving up to the presidential stake. So, you know, the issue is not just around issue of voting rights, as important as that is, and particularly as it is specifically targeting our community. Because, you know, I'm kind of used to people not giving a damn about what happens to black folk. But if you are talking about the implications of not having our voting power, which is an absolutely necessary, it's an absolutely essential part of the Democratic coalition that brings victories. That's why he's in that White House today. I don't understand why it keeps getting pushed aside to another thing, to another thing, to another thing. Finally, I will say, honestly, I'm a little perturbed with white progressives who I believe have muddied the water with H.R. 1 versus H.R. 4, which I think is a much cleaner bill and specifically focused on our voting rights in a much more targeted way as it relates to trying to repair the damage that the Supreme Court has done to the Voting Rights Act. It's also closer to what even Manchin has said that he would support. And so let's think about this logically. Let's show some backbone. Let's take the inspiration of the Texan Democrats who have shown those in Washington, D.C. how to fight and actually move together in a very proactive way to make sure that our voting rights are protected, because they are under attack like none of us have ever seen in our lifetime.
There should be and has to be a continuous, constant, and direct assault on the folks standing in the way, Julian. It has to be relentless. This should be Freedom Summer 2.0. There should be direct. I'm trying to understand why the NAACP. I'm like, Derek Johnson, where are y'all? The NAACP should have direct action. They got 2,000 chapters in the country. They should have direct action campaigns in every single state in America where they have state chapters.
Roland, you're absolutely right. Freedom Summer 2.0. What needs to be happening is that people need to be putting their foot down. I've got, shout out to Melanie Campbell, Dr. Cole, the NCNW team, the Black women who have come together, Black women and their allies who've come together. And frankly, the NAACP needs to be spanked. I mean, we try not to criticize each other in the name of unity, but we really need to see people out there. Joe Manchin needs to be followed from his office to his home and back to his office. Same thing with Christian Cinema. The fact is that if indeed Republicans are able to get away with what they're trying to get away with in Texas, forget infrastructure, forget education, frankly, forget COVID assistance, forget everything, because what they're going to be saying is that now in 2022, we can gerrymander like we want to. We can take people out of offices they've been appointed to. In Georgia, one of our colleagues was removed from the Elections Commission just summarily after the Georgia law was passed. So we can't have this. People need to be outraged. Right on to Reverend Barber, who had a rally on the Hill today. And I know Melanie and the team are going to be meeting on Thursday. They're asking people to tweet today, to do social media today, and to continue to lift this issue up. These people are the height of hypocrisy, these Republicans, when they talk about the Constitution, but they don't know the Constitution. And thank you for showing us that silly little governor, Abbott, silly, devoid of rationale. He's talking about Delaware. Talk about yourself, dude. You are wrong, you're way wrong, and you're more than wrong. But, years ago, I was with Armstrong Williams on somebody's television show, and he said he didn't care about fair, he cared about winning. And that's what we're seeing here. I don't care whether it's fair or not, I just want to win. Well, we have to be the ones to say, oh, hell no.
Look, Dwayne, this is an absolute must. Pure and simple. It's a must. And again, if you got folks in the Senate, we know where the block is. There has to be constant pressure. That's what King and others understood. That's what SNCC understood. That's what CORE understood. They all understood that.
Listening to Abbott speak, I felt like I was watching Selma all over again, because what you're hearing is some of the same excuses that they were using in 1955 to say, well, they couldn't guarantee voting rights. It's fascinating to me that we're in 2021 and some of these same conversations are being had now. But what I think is important to pay attention to is the fact that there's more on the line than just voting rights in Texas. The fact that these legislators have left the state and are going to D.C., like Dr. Avis said, it's going to put pressure on the Biden and Harris administration to really live up to what they ran on. If you ran on the idea that everybody's vote counts and that it's so important for everyone to come out and vote because you're going to see results of the fact that you're voting, you have to be able to stand on that when those rights are threatened. And right now we're seeing one of the most dangerous threats we've seen to voting rights for African Americans and Americans in the last maybe 20 years. This has to be we have to have an active fight to push back against this sort of rollback of voting rights. Our people fought for that. We have to be active about that. And the Biden administration has to be active about the fact that they really believe in these things they say, and they're going to back up the people who voted for them and give them the rights that they deserve.
Pressure. That is the only thing that is going to make this happen. And so those are the kind of things that we absolutely need to see.
Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the Black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in Black-owned businesses, the Black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.